This torpedo is wire guided, as is the Mark 37. The 37 wire guide comes out the bottom down here, this little hole right there. Hi. And the Mark 48 torpedo, its wire guidance is right here. This thing on the back is called a torpedo mounted dispenser. On the early torpedoes, like the 37, you notice there is none. We had to physically take these out of canisters that we had and mount them, after this is tube loaded, into the back of the tube, splice the wire, and then connect it to the fire control system. To save time and make it more reliable, they created the torpedo mounted dispenser. This whole thing loads in with the torpedo. Once it's in the tube, we lock it. There's a little thing you turn here that locks it in the tube and releases it from the torpedo. So when the torpedo fires, this stays in the tube. And this silver cord here is called flex hose. There's about 200 feet of that. It goes out and then flips and drags along the side of the submarine to protect the guidance wire. The guidance wire is just a very small monofilament wire. Very, very small. And there's lots of it. There's some in this dispenser, and there's some in the torpedo itself. And what happens is when the torpedo leaves the tube, that splice basically gets no tension on it, because as the submarine moves, we're feeding wire out of this end of it, and as the torpedo moves, it's feeding wire out the end of it. So that splice kind of stays stationary with no tension. To test the torpedoes, we have underwater ranges that have all kinds of hydrophones in them to 3D map the events going on at the range. And one of those hydrophones looks like that. It's triangular, so it has 3 hydrophones. With those 3 hydrophones, it can triangulate with other hydrophones the position of the torpedo. There's a pinger in the torpedo, and there's a pinger in the submarine, and there's a pinger in the target. They all operate at different frequencies, so they can track them. When they track them, it goes to the computers on the tracking facility to generate a 3D real-time display. And what we see here is we actually see a P-3 Orion is air launching a Mark 46 torpedo in the Dayba Bay range. And we'll just stand here and watch the video here. Okay, the upper left screen, you can see the P-3 Orion there. And then the color screen here to the right is all those circles represent where these array of hydrophones are. And you have the target and the aircraft that they're tracking. And I'm getting ready to drop it. He's dropping the 46 right now. And you'll see it come up on the screen. So there's the torpedo in purple, magenta, whatever. The display on the lower left is the acoustic trace of the sounds coming from the torpedo and the target. And you can hear the torpedo what's called range gating. The pings get closer together. And there you go. And here's the mine section. Everybody has seen these kind of mines in the World War II movies. These are your floating mines. They have what's called Hertz horns on them. These things up here, they're basically attached to a glass vial, and if they get pushed over or whatever, they break that glass vial, and it causes a chemical reaction to produces electricity that fires the mine. So then we have a Mark 26 mine or Mark 25 mine. This was a more advanced mine. I don't know if I've never seen or used one, so I don't know. And then we have the airdropped mines that they used to mine Haiphong Harbor during the Vietnam War. And this right here is the latest one. This is, well, it may not be the latest. It's been out of the business for a while. But this was called Captor. And there's actually the torpedo inside of this tube. And it just sits there, and it can be programmed for different types of things. You can say, okay, I'm going to shoot the next, after I count 10 ships, I'm going to fire the torpedo. Or I'm going to wait until I get a ship over certain mass, because anything that travels through the water displaces the water. We can measure that pressure, and we can get a sense of how big the vessel is. That creates that pressure wave, and it can fire on that. So it can just lies and waits. Then we have over here, we have kind of the history of mines. But here's what a Hertz horn looks like. It's hard to see probably because of the lighting. And it's very simple. Hit that thing, breaks glass vial, causes a chemical reaction, generates electricity. Here's an old flintlock mine. During the Revolutionary War, they used flintlock mines to attempt to blow up ships. Here's a frame torpedo. This was the Civil War, mostly. And basically this was submerged. This was all underwater, and a ship would come by, hit the exploder, and boom. Then over here we have the keg mine. It was a floating mine. Float around, and if something happened, it would hit the firing lever, cause the flintlock to go off. And then earlier than that, we had the spar torpedo. This is what the Hunley had on it. Okay. Normally the ship that had it suffered as much damage as the person they were attacking. This is our undersea environment display. It talks about how all the different things in the ocean affect our ability to use and see and hear. We have light, sound, oxygen, pressure, density, buoyancy, salinity, the tectonic plates and the motion of the currents, all that gets talked about. Very, very diverse environment. And now we're coming in. I'm actually going through the museum kind of backwards than the way we recommend people tour it. So now we're in the Thrusher Legacy. And this talks about the SubSafe program, how we made our submarines safer because of the Thrusher disaster. Talks about the DSRV. We have a lot of little artifacts from the Thrusher crew members. Right here is a drawing that the son of the CEO of the Thrusher drew for his dad. This is a magnometer. This is what helped them find the Thresher. And now we're in a timeline history of undersea exploration. This is how we recommend they start. They start here, kind of gives them an idea of how mankind has progressed in his inquisitiveness of what's underwater and how can we explore it. So, and back out into the lobby. And we call this King Neptune's alcove, or the cave.